After both her parents died within a 3-month period and her subsequent hospitalization, Chyna Wu moved from Hong Kong to America, studied and received a master's degree in thanatology, the science of death and dying. She gives workshops to the community and to groups of doctors in Sedona, Arizona, where she works and resides. She's a strong advocate and spokeswoman for hospice care. Her story is inspiring, informative, and eloquent.
I was lucky. I finished my undergrad in 2005, and I was debating whether or not I should go back to school or not. But then I took one semester off. I went to Tibet. It's a beautiful place, you know. And also before that, I started to study Tibetan Buddhism. It's all about emphasizing on death and dying. Right. So we even have meditation about impermanent. So every day we're supposed to think there's a different way of dying that could take our life. So when I came back to the country and then I went to the Brooklyn College, it's a master program, I was looking around and see what I want to take, you know, go back to school right away. And I saw this program called thanatology. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I never heard what's a thanatology. Meanwhile, thanatology means death science and the study of death and dying. And then I said, okay. But at that point, I still don't think that has anything to do with me personally. But as soon as I enrolled to the program, the first class I took was a bereavement class. And they talk about somatic syndromes. And I said, oh my God, that's what, you know, what is? Because back then in '94, I lost my parents. Both of them died within 3 months. So after my father died, I was hospitalized and I have chest pain. I couldn't breathe, and then everyone, you know, in the hospital just go through scan of like testing after testing. But none of them asked me what happened in my life then. So I was there for 5 days. The pain's not going away. I constantly need painkiller, you know, with the dripping, you know, the baby. So, and to the point I say, you know what, it's hopeless for me to stay here. So I check myself out. And then it takes me a while to recover, finally. But then every year around the same time, I have the same symptoms. So for a while, I thought I'm going to die also. Because I have exactly symptoms of my father who died of a heart attack. So I have horrible chest pain. So all these years later, like about 12 years later, in 2006, they died in '94, you know. So I realized that, oh my God, it's called somatic syndromes. When someone's grieving and someone who experienced like traumatic, you know, stress, and actually your heart secretes this hormone, will sting your heart, and it's be mimicking a heart attack. They even have a term called broken heart syndromes. It was really interesting. I think a lot of time, most people when you're healthy, you don't think about your options. So people get sick suddenly, right? You hear all the time, people, oh, he was fine, and the next day he went to the hospital, and then it's last stage of something. But then most of the time, people will try to save themselves, and then the family member one is trying to save them too. So they end up like going through really aggressive treatment. And you hear sometimes it's a miracle, people do recover, but then most of the time is the last stage is already at the really end of it, and then sometimes the patient is not even, you know, responds to the curative treatment already, but that's the option.
Right.
So a lot of time people don't think about these things, and then they have like a negative association with hospice care. They're thinking, oh, hospice is the place I'm going to die. I'm not going there. And indeed, hospice do have a record of people go there and die right away. It's because the patient did not know about this right. They cannot choose hospice early on, and also doctor did not give them referral early enough. You know, a lot of time doctor will give a patient, refer them to hospice like right 2-3 days before they die. But actually, sometimes hospice care actually prove that to prolong someone's life.
Right.
You know, so that's my part of my job. Go out there and go to nursing home, assisted living, hospital, and talk to nurses and doctors, and also the community.
Okay.
What people has to understand. Yeah, I go to the community. I give workshops. Recently in Arizona, I was giving a workshop to 40 doctors. to talk about end-of-life care and then end-of-life options. Because I think even some doctors don't have a clear understanding of hospice, you know. I mean, hospice is not really a place that, oh, when someone is dying, you're going to send them there. There's an option, for example, the majority of American, the fourth leading cause of death for the elderly is chronic lung disease, right? So chronic lung disease has symptoms of like people will lose weight, they rely on the oxygen, they have anorexia, and then basically the health really declining. And meanwhile, they're eligible for hospice care. And also, while they're in the program of hospice care, they can still receive treatment. A lot of time, doctors don't even know that's an option. You know, if you don't know how you're going to refer your patients. I mean, even the patient don't know. The patients always rely on the doctor's information. So this is my job to go out there and then let the doctor know. By the way, this is is available. And sometimes our hospice patient can even go to the casino. They can live, you know, because the condition becomes stabilized. Okay? So hospice actually gave these really good options, not only taking care of the patients, also as the patient's family as a unit. Okay, so for example, while the patient's in a hospice program, the social worker will come in, not only for the patients, but we talk to the caretakers. You know, the caretakers a lot of time have lots of responsibility, and they're the one who get burned out. They're the one who have emotional problem. And hospice will also take care of them. And also if the patient die, hospice will give like 12 months free bereavement support. Even though they say it's 12 months frame, but most people don't come back within that 12 months. It's not surprising that people will come back like 3-4 years after. Say, I really think now I need to talk to someone and want to, you know. So hospice give this option. And also, since hospice deal with mostly a lot of, they have a department for bereavement, actually is one of the requirements when you open a hospice that you have to give the bereavement support. So there's a lot of information and resource there, and really like a place to go to ask for help when someone's grieving, instead of just going to any psychiatrist or like counselor, because they're not trained to deal with grief. It's very different, you know. Also, yeah, it's very important, nutrition, because when people's grieving, basically your immune system is low. And you have, you know, somatic syndromes, and people lost their appetite, you know, and stuff like that. And sometimes people have pre-existing symptoms and it will exacerbate. So taking care of their health is really important. That is really rare opportunity that I was able to do a workshop for 40 doctors. That's a big breakthrough, you know. Even in this, you know, I don't think that it's really happening before. I think it's a good movement, because I was able to representing all the hospice in the area where I work, in Sedona and Cottonwood. I don't think they misunderstand. First of all, they don't teach death and dying in medical school. Most doctors, you know, they even have the oath is to save life. There's no such things like, you know, to teach them about how to deal with if someone is dying. So, you know, so it's not really emphasizing on the end of life care. And a lot of time, even doctors don't understand what is hospice really is. The hospice, the truth is, it's not really when someone is dying and you stand them there like 3 or 4 days before they die. Hospice actually have 6 months unlimited enrollment. You know, if the patient live longer than 6 months, and as long as doctors say, yeah, he or she is still in under the category of like terminal illness, not responding to the curative care, they're eligible. People can go on for like years, like a year or 2 years, you know, and it's not like automatically stop after 6 months. So actually people do live longer, like the one that I told you, people who have chronic lung disease. And the reason why they're not using it because there's no knowledge out there. Oh, actually they're eligible for that. And hospice, what's so good about, we keep people alive more, and what's different than the traditional is they don't take care of you only your physical body. They take care of you physically, emotionally, spiritually, and socially. social. They will send you a volunteer. For example, if you love music, they will send a musician in your house once a week and play music. Or if you like art, they will send you an artist to do artwork with you. So even though you're going through this difficult time, but you still have holistic care. You want to have someone to talk to you, they will come in and talk to you. And if you like, you have problem with like documentations or certain type of like assistance, and like a social worker in hospice will come in the family and help you to apply for certain things. But if you just go into normal hospital, you don't have that kind of support, right? Yeah, so it's really amazing. And I'm surprised that in America, people not really embrace it. Mom went first. My mom actually had a chronic lung disease. See, she could have received hospice care, but we didn't know. She died first. And she basically, before she died, the last 2 years of her life, she was in the hospital. And then I moved in with my father, trying to take care of him. He's fine, he's healthy, you know. But then 3 months later, one day I come home and he's dead. You know, because even though you have brothers, sisters, we all deal with it individually. Different. Like I have sisters, my siblings like 20 years older than me, some of them, and I'm the youngest. It's a big gap. I mean, for them, that could be like, okay, our parents dying, it's a relief for them, you know, because they have been caring for our parents also, you know, because they're elders, they're in the 50s, 60s now. But for me, I'm still young. I was the youngest. I was only 22 years old. I still need my parents. You know, so we kind of grieve differently. I guess because when everybody else acting nothing happened, and I think nothing happened, I don't even suspect that my pain has to do with, you know, the grief. It's no such a information or knowledge. Even in the hospital, none of them asked me what happened. If the doctors or the nurses have done some intake, okay, so what happened to your life recently? Right? And then I was like, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend, I moved from other state to other state, stuff like that. That could cause stress, and, you know. But none of them asked me. If they could have asked me then I said, yeah, I lost my parents in 3 months. Then, you know, the problem would be solved because I don't have pre-existing illness. Oh, okay, my turning point is really to go to get my master's degree in graphic design. Until then, I was miserable because I did not understand why am I feeling like this? Why am I so sad? I just feel like something wrong with me. I'm so ungrateful. My life is great. You know, I was very successful. You know, when I came to this country, I was a successful model. Then I had a billboard in Times Square. I have pictures in the color box, and I was really successful model. And someone wanted to marry me. I was engaged. I'm going to school. I have everything that I want, but I was miserable. Could not figure out why, and then I start to think something wrong with me. Why am I always depressed? Maybe I'm a little ungrateful, you know. And then if you don't know about your problem, and then your spouse don't know your problem, if he thinks that you have problem, you start to doubt yourself. Really, do I have problem? But lucky, I think my program saved me. Even though I get into my program unconsciously, not knowing that it has something to do with me. But it solved all my problems. First of all, you the only one who can save yourself. Not even your therapist, you know. Sometimes that, yeah, talking is important. But comes to the point, action is more important. You know, because you can trap yourself in a stage of grief that you paralyze yourself. You know, you can wake up and cry all day. That could go on for months. Or like, you know, or a year. It happens to people. But then you have to make a decision. Okay, enough is enough. I'm going to go out there and change my life. I think grief is all about recreating your life. It's almost like a butterfly. You know, you shed your skin and you recreate yourself. And I think that's really important. The pain you just have to go through, like everyone else. You know, we can't take over your pain. I wish I could when I, you know, go to counseling. I can listen to you. I can take it, but you can't. We all have to go through it ourselves in a different way. And also, second, you have to understand what way that you deal with your grief. Is it a positive way or negative way? Positive way is, yeah, you let yourself cry, you let yourself take some time off from work. negative, what I'm saying is like self-medicate. A lot of people become, pick up drinking, and that's really devastating. It's really scary. And drugs. And for young people, we even have statistics saying that it becomes promiscuous. So you have to identify this way. Are you grieving positively or negatively? Are you harming yourself? And also number 3 is like just go find people that you can talk to, people who understand you, who went through the same thing. Don't talk to people who have no experience of losing someone particularly, because people are going to tell you this ridiculous thing and make you even more mad, and then you will shut down. So go to support group, talk to people who has a similar background, similar. Even you go to counseling, make sure this counselor who really trained for grief. Because I have people, they told me she went to see a counselor, a therapist, and the therapist asked her, so how come, you're not even close to your parents, why are you still crying? That's ridiculous. Because that person, the therapist, did not train for grieving. Even though we know, even though your parents was abusive to you when you was a child, you still would grieve for these abusive parents when they die. So just all kind of stuff you need to know. So I think knowledge is really important. That's why my job becomes more like an educator than a counselor. Because I don't believe in counseling someone, especially in grief, because we all grieve differently, and your relationship with the person is different. So you know the best how to take care of yourself, but you got to learn about the fact. Grieving could, if you don't express emotion, it could be somaticized. You become sick, and stuff like that, or you becomes like isolating yourself. You don't want to talk to people. You don't eat anymore. You don't. But all that has to be aware. How long I've been done this? You know what? After a while, I think it's enough. I think that becomes, in our professional terms, say, if after a long time you still acting that way, that means your grief becomes complicated already. The longer you get help, ask for help, the harder to get help later on. And it's not surprised that people who lost their children, the loved one, after 10, 15 years, they still cannot talk about it. It's very important too when you talk to kids, because you have to categorize them different age group. Because certain age, like for 0 to 7, even 0 to 5 or 5 to 8 is a different group, because they have different kind of perception and a capacity to understand what death is really mean to you. For kids, if you're 0 to 3, 4 years old, they think death is something they can come back, right? Because they see on the cartoon all the time, the bird or the dog die and then they come back alive again. And so they really have no concept. So it's important to talk to kids with appropriate, the age group. We always try to make it simple as possible with young kids, to the point. Yes, grandmom died. Don't tell them, oh, grandma went to heaven or blah, 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 or God's will. That's like, if you say that, they will say, oh, does it mean God gonna take my life too? And then you give them mixed, information. But people say that all the time. You hear that, right? So we have to be aware. We don't, give them that kind of information and confuse them. Also, even someone who's suicide, you have to review the truth. I think that's really important, because a lot of time the society do not want to admit even someone, a family member or a loved one commit suicide. They always make up stories and saying that, oh, they died in a different way and stuff like that. But that is not really healthy either, to the griever, because the griever actually is lying. So they're in denial, they don't accept it. But we have the term saying that, because when we talk about to kids, we say, because who and so, he suffered with a loss of pain, he doesn't know what to do, and then that's why he ends his life. Most of the time, people who suffer so much pain, they have no way to turn to, Instead, like, of course, suicide is like stigmatized to not only, the society, everybody says, oh my God, this person is so weak and selfish, and, but we don't know how much pain this person really suffered. So we try to explained that way because she suffered lots of pain and there's no way out for her, and she chose to complete suicide. We don't say commit suicide anymore in professional terms. We say complete suicide. To keep your health maintained healthy, like to eat, to exercise. Because the truth, if you keep sleeping in a bed, you're not exercising, you're not eating, and soon you'll get sick. And sometimes exercise helps depression. Even though the depression came from grief is different than the clinical depression, but they're very similar. And then the truth is also statistics saying that too. If depression came from grief, if it's prolonging for a long time, it eventually turns out to be a clinical depression, and that's dangerous because you hear people they want to commit suicide when they're in grief. I know now I work in a nursing home sometimes, assisted living. Some women got checked into behavioral unit is because when their husband died, they don't know how to deal with it. They really gone bizarre, and then the family member don't know how to deal with them. They put them in a behavioral unit. Very sad. They have a knowledge that's on and off in their life. They're going to grieve their parents. For example, the graduations, the marriage, the first child. It's going to hit them very hard, And knowing this thing will happen to you, so you won't get smacked in the face suddenly. You're thinking everything's good, and then oh my God, why am I feeling this way? But even for me too, when I was engaged, I was feeling even more worse than because subconscious I realized, oh my God, my parents are not going to be there for my wedding, and then no one ever warned me, tell me that's the normal reaction, and then I call off my weddings. I didn't go through it. So it could be devastating. So knowing these facts, it will help you. And also the person who lost their parents young like that, you have to really to build the identity, because they're no longer influenced by the parents and they kind of lost part of themselves. When you lost your parents, it's almost like it's like a tree, your root is gone and you kind of, because you don't have a foundation anymore. And that's difficult. So the person has to be very strong and accept the fact that, my whole life I'm going to be on my own and no one's going to be there to help me to make decisions. You have to search for your mentor. Find your own mentor. I always do. Even though I lost my mom, I have like 10 moms. Everybody wants to be my mom. People love to help you and you have to let people help you. People who got a master's degree in death and dying. There's only 2 colleges in the whole America give this master's degree.
Where's that?
Brooklyn College and Hood University in Maryland. But now I have more online, degree for thanatology, but it's not popular. I couldn't even find jobs when I graduated in here. They don't acknowledge it. They rather hire a social worker to work in hospice because this country is all about money and claim insurance and blah blah blah. But when it comes to death and dying, yeah, I have a master's degree in death and dying. I do internship, I do bereavement, but when it comes to hiring people, I'm not in the category. No, I think knowledge is really important. I always encourage people, go search for, read books and search for help and find people who has been through your, it's like your site. I think that's very encouraging because people see that, okay, actually I can live